Hey guys, Benjamin Gray here in the Modular studio at Cal Arts. Today I'm going to show you how to make an 808 kick on an analog modular synth. Then I'm going to pair it with some chords played with Output's Analog Strings virtual instrument.
Alright, let's get into it.
Step 1 is to send clock signal to envelopes that sync our core elements. In this case, our core elements are 1, a sine wave generator, 2, the FM input associated with the sine wave generator, and 3, a white noise generator. Basically, we have one master envelope feeding a bunch of slave envelopes information. Okay, now we can see that all the lights are blinking at more or less the same rate. When I slow down or speed up the rate of our master envelope, our slave envelopes will slow down or speed up together with it. For step 2, I'm going to connect one of my slave envelopes to the VC input of one of my voltage-controlled amplifiers. Once I send something through the input and output of this VCA, my master envelope will control the rate at which it plays, and my slave envelope will control its attack and decay. Moving on to step 3, I'm going to send our sine wave through the VCA we just set up. Obviously, an 808 is a pretty subby, siney instrument. However, I do want to add a little bit of saturation just to thicken it up a bit. To do this, I'm going to send our sine signal through what this modular calls a triple wave shaper. This should be a pretty effective way of adding some of that crunchy goodness that I'm looking for. That being said, I don't want the signal to be completely affected by this saturation, so I'm going to split the sine output, sending one copy through the wave shaper into our mini mixer, and the other copy of the signal just straight into our mini mixer, blending the two. I'm going to send the output of the mini mixer into the input of our VCA, and finally the output of our VCA into one of the main outputs on this synth. Alright, we're making some noise. Definitely not what I'd call an 808 yet, however. Nothing like that analog sound, being digitally recorded, then digitally compressed by YouTube or SoundCloud, or Facebook video, whatever. Moving on to step 4, time to give this thing a little bit of that famous 808 bend. I sent output from another one of our slave envelopes to the FM input of our sine generator, and voila! We tend to want to blend our long 808 drone with a punchy shorter kick. As you can hear, we're currently in the process of making the shorter tighter of the two elements. Anyway, getting back on track, our final step is to add a little bit of white noise for some nice top end. To do this, I'm going to use, not surprisingly, a white noise generator, through a bandpass filter so we can control the frequencies in our top end, and ultimately send that through another envelope-controlled VCA to another one of our main outputs. Alright, now I'm just going to tune this to taste, and we'll have our 808-esque kick drum and bass. I say 808-esque because I want to make something that's original to me in my style. If I wanted an exact replica of a Beethoven 808, I wouldn't bother making it, seeing as there is already 10,000 other people who have replicated that kick for various sample pack libraries. Alright, so there's our longer drone. I'll definitely want to process it further in Ableton, but the foundation is there. I'll mess around with the pitch and the decay time a little bit, so I have a couple of options to work with. So we just built the 808 elements from scratch, and I'm not someone who would normally use presets for anything. However, I recently got to check out some of the modern strings presets coming from Output's Analog Strings VST for Contact, And they are something else, let me tell you. Literally every preset in this pack is its own gem. If you're looking for patches that have amazing evolving textures and spatial movement, I would seriously consider checking this out. With this in mind, all the chords in this track that I played use presets from the Modern Strings pack. For the sake of my CPU, I like to bounce all my tracks to audio. However, we can listen to some of these guys right now. The first one's called Walkie Talkie, and it sounds like this. I did almost no tweaks to this guy. The second one is called Stuck on Everest. Pretty much all I did to this one is just a little bit of high pass and low pass automation to have it gradually come in. But otherwise, same deal, almost nothing done to this. The final analog strings preset I used is called Frigo Lights. I sidechained it to the kick and snare and used a little bit of auto pan. Additionally, I doubled it and added a little bit of sample reduction to the double, just to give it some sizzly top end. Here's what the first instance of it sounds like. And here's what the sample reduced top end version of it sounds like. Finally, I grouped all the chords together, removed all the unnecessary low end from them collectively, and used a variable MU compressor with a slow attack and a little distortion to glue them all together. Moving on to drums, let's start with the kick. Here's what it sounds like raw from the Modular. To process this kick drum, I used a bunch of quick compression, or what really amounts to limiting, an EQ where I lopped off the top end at about 1.5K, and used another limiter on the end to tame the peaks just a little bit more. I like the idea of this kick being lo-fi-esque and not having a lot of that top end, but depending on how it sits in the mix, I may change my mind. The snare I split into 3 parts. Looking at the bottom of the snare, you can see I used the right side of the sample for both sides using my utility gain. This effectively makes it mono. Then I found these 2 areas that I really think make this snare hit hard. One's right around 200 Hz and the other's at 450. Not only did I boost those frequencies, but I removed some of those frequencies in my chords to clear space for the snare to dominate in those areas. Here's what it sounds like. Without the punchiness, moving on to the top end of these snares, they're panned far left and right, and the right side is hossed, or delayed by 10 milliseconds. This gives it a really nice width. Let's hear it with and without the Hoss effect. Without, and with. My hats are super simple. I've just removed all the low-end muck and panned them left and right respectively. Obviously, there's a little creative tuning that I've done, and like all these files, I've consolidated them so I can loop them and group them really easily. My rims are super similar in that I've removed the low-end muck, done some tuning, and then I've just done some pan automation, as you can see right here. Like my chord group, my drum group also has a little bit of MU compression, with some drive just to glue everything together. You'll notice that I have two buses for snare verb and snare echo. The snare verb I have automated to turn on once in a while to add a little variation. Let's listen for it now. The snare echo I have just at the end of my track, just to add a little bit of squiggly fun variation. It's done by automating the delay time. One more time with the drums. Moving on to the 808, I took our drone sample and split it into two parts. As frequencies go lower, we lose the ability to localize them, or determine their direction. Also, in most audio systems, the sub is mono. With this in mind, I wanted to keep the bottom mono and widen the top with some chorus. Here's our bottom end. And here's our top end with a little bit of drive and chorus. For the 808 drone group, all I've done is sidechained it to the kick and the snare, remove some of the top end, and use some glue compression. So that's the meat and potatoes of this beat. As you can see, we have some bandpass breaks that are made to sound really small, so our other drums sound big by comparison. We have white noise with some filter and flanger automation. We have a reverse exhale, and some pan chants. On my master channel, I'm just setting this thing to be ready for mastering, so no limiter or mid-side EQ yet. I've got a pitch drop on there, and an automated reverb that builds up then disappears. Alright, let's hear this beat as a whole. So that's the story, folks. Thanks for watching the video. Shout out to Output for letting me try out the Analog Strings VST. Truly an awesome plugin. And stay tuned for more videos of me making fun things with this modular synth right here. All right, peace.